Hello, everyone. Hi, and I hope that you all can find me over here because I just had to switch over to a new live stream. Thank goodness this one doesn't have the echo. I really don't know what that was, but I feel like now, second time's the charm. We got it going, and here we go. So, I saw a lot of you. Yay, Dana, you found me. I saw a lot of you over on the other chat. So hopefully you see kind of what I did here by starting a new live stream, unfortunately. So what I wanted to start with is first to just say hello to all of you. Dana, I know that there were so many others that I said hello as I was chatting before I got on, which was actually really fun. I think I want to start doing that before they let me start chatting before I think like 30 minutes to an hour before when it starts counting down for my live. So maybe I will hop on and just start chatting on there beforehand, just because it's kind of fun to get to chat with everyone. And so I'm just gonna talk a little bit as you all find me in here. Hi, Barb. So good to see you. Hi, Dana. I'm just glad to see you guys found me over here. I wanted to start out by just talking about what we have. Yes, it's fixed. Hi, Sarah. Hi, MJ Star. Hello again. Hello, Cosmic Medium Grace Lannon. I love that name. Like I was trying to say earlier, I really love that cosmic mediums are a thing now. It was never something that I knew was possible as when I was younger. It was never something that it was always something that I loved, but it was never a thing. So just leave it to the age of Aquarius to bring out the new mediumship style, because mediumship is completely changing, and I have noticed this for myself. I mean, it's not that it's changing in that there's really anything different about it, as much as mediumship as a healing tool. Before, it was really about physical mediumship. They did like seances, and it took a special kind of discipline. And now now, especially in the age of Aquarius, everything is so kind of lighter and more subtle and more blown open. It's like mental mediumship is much easier for everyone to do and to be experiential. I mean, what is it called? Evidential. For it to be evidential mental mediumship is very, it's like very trainable. It's something that everyone can really access. And what I mean by evidential is very concrete evidence that other people can be like, yep, that's grandpa, that makes sense, I know who that is. So I feel like this is something I talk about a lot, but it is something that I wanted to kind of remind everyone about, because I am doing a beginner, all level, really, even if you're really good at mediumship, you'll still get something out of it. But I'm going to start at the very beginning. So if you're a beginner, this one would be the workshop for you. It's going to be Saturday, January 29th at noon Central Time. So you can sign up on my website. I have that on there if that interests you. And then next week, next Wednesday, all these W's, at 7 Central, the same time, I'm going to be doing another free support group. So let me know if that is something that you guys would like to hop on again. I did it last month, I believe, and I loved it. It was so much fun, and I just felt lighter and happier, and I hope you guys did too. I hope you guys really got something out of it, because we just had enough time to kind of go around and share, and it was really beautiful to be seen and heard by like-minded and supportive people. You're sitting in a room where you feel like, okay, these people get me. One At least there's one place where you're not going to be weird in the world. So that's always wonderful energy to be in. And I wanted to chat about this book. I think it's backwards on the screen, but it is Michael A. Singer's Surrender Experiment. And so if you feel like reading it, or even not, it doesn't matter, but come and we'll just chat about the idea of kind of saying yes to everything, the idea of letting go. He has a really radical letting go practice that was kind of part of his meditation practice that really took him to dramatic lengths. But I just wanted to see what you guys all thought about that book, because it really spoke to me when I read it. And so I just wanted to share that with all of you. So come email me. I'll send you the Zoom link. We will all just hang out and chat about spiritual stuff, kind of face to face. So it'll be different than this format. And hi, yes. Oh, wonderful. Thank you for telling me that, Grace. I'm so glad. I'm glad that sparked that felt right for you, because if it's you, it feels right. We feel it. And hi, Whitney. Hi, thank you. You are so sweet. Hi, Tamara. Hi, Elfern. Yeah, isn't that a good book? It's just, I'm glad. I know it's kind of an older, it's not older, but it's been out for a while. So many of you may have already read it, or you may have read his other book, The Untethered Soul. So they're just great. It's great stuff. So what I wanted to start with today was chatting about Christian or religious trauma. Before I get into that, I do want to mention that February 22nd, so 2/22/22, I'm going to do a Zoom Meet Your Spirit Guides workshop. So come, we're all going to get onto Zoom, and we're going to go through a Meet Your Spirit Guides meditation, and all together. The collective energy of doing this in a group has always been really profound for me whenever I lead these classes. And I have only ever done them in person, these groups. So doing it over Zoom is going to be a first for me, and I'm very excited. So if you guys feel like doing something fun on 2/22/22, just head on over to my website and sign up. And I think that was all of the housekeeping kind of stuff I wanted to talk about. So now I'm just going to get right into it. So when it comes to Christian religious trauma, it is a big thing right now. I just really feel I really feel like this is coming up to the surface as one of the collective traumas in American society. I can't speak for other countries necessarily. I don't know if it's all English speaking societies. I'm not sure, but I just know that for American society, there is kind of a collective wound of religious trauma, of Christian trauma, when it comes to people that have gained their own spirituality and have had to leave religion behind and leave traditions behind, leave the way that we grew up behind. And it may have really hurt some people along the way. So it felt for me personally, and this is something that I experienced, it felt like getting out of a cult, honestly. I grew up Southern Baptist and very evangelical, Baptist church, and just that whole thing. And I just want to say that I really do love the essence of Christianity. I love Christ. I love Jesus. I love what Christianity stands for. I just sort of wanted to explore more. I just saw that there was more to it. I saw that there was more to spirituality than than that one piece of Christianity that was given to me as a child, and we would go to church every Sunday. It was very much like Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, very, you know, dogma. So dogma really is the problem with that, with religion and with kind of coming out of it. You're coming out of all of this dogma and dogmatic black and white thinking, heaven or hell kind of thinking. It's very limiting. You have rules, you have limits. And it comes from a time where I feel like people needed it. Like, I really feel like people probably did need to to have a group of other people that, yeah, X fundamentalism. It's just the fundamentalism that is really the problem. And I know plenty of amazing Christians, by the way, that are not fundamentalist, that are very open and loving. And it's really what Christianity was supposed to be. It just wasn't what I saw as a child, personally. And it just keeps coming up, like you, Grace, it keeps coming up in a lot of readings for people where they also there wasn't compassion in their experience with religion. And that is what the problem is. That is what I feel like the trauma stems from, is the fact that the compassion piece is taken out. And then the dogma says, the dogma puts rules on God. The dogma says, like, only one God. It has to be this father type God, then this one, and then they take everything very literally. Everything in the Bible is literal, and it's not necessarily it wasn't meant to be taken literally, in my opinion. In my personal opinion, when I read the Bible, I read it as a symbolic, almost shamanic language. Like, I feel like that there are several allegories kind of layered. I feel like once you get into layers of samadhi, levels of samadhi, of attainment, the way that you start writing and communicating naturally channels layers of allegory upon allegory. So you have numerological allegory, you have astrological allegory, you have, a cosmology kind of shown in the Bible. And then there's also like a just shamanic experiential language. If you take the language that was used back then, all based on experience, personal experience, and you turn it into this Greek logical reasoning era type of speak, that's a loss in translation. Not even, not even the way that translation gets lost over just plain translating. And if you've ever read a translated text, you know what I mean about what gets lost in translation. But there's also the meaning, the symbology is lost because people don't understand what symbolic language is. And then fundamentalists are taking to the symbolic language and making it literal. So, hello, Blue Alchemist. Thank you for being here. And I love that name too, Blue Alchemist. That's the best name. So good. Hi, Michael. Hi, Dana. I have family members that think I'm dabbling in some speak of spirit guides versus using the Christian term Holy Spirit. Yes. Thank you for saying that. There is a big, big, big emphasis on vocabulary in fundamentalism. It's the vocabulary that you use that makes all the difference. It's like everyone is required to use a specific vocabulary, and if you do, you're okay, and if you don't, you're suspicious. We don't like you, kind of thing. Very, they just think anything else is dark. The word occult basically means Satan to fundamentalists. Like, it's like the vocabulary is just misunderstood. They're not understanding that occult means hidden. There is dark occult that exists, but it's not everything occult is not evil, is not Satan. So And then you put the aliens on top of that, and it's like, oh God, and even with the stuff I say about the grays, still I'm still not, obviously not all aliens are, demonic or are even dark or lower astral. Some of them are, I would say a vast majority of the grays are. Like, it's just not necessarily, it's not great, but they can still evolve. It does happen. They are outside of time. They're intimate, interdimensional beings. So you do actually, in my experience, come across gray style bodies that have ascended, and usually they change. They don't keep the gray kind of creepy look if they have reached ascension, if they have reached those higher levels. And so, but that it just does happen. You can't, this black and white, grays are bad, whites are good kind of thinking can be put on anything, is what I'm trying to say. So like the, angels and demons and aliens, like all kind of thrown into their compartments, is just kind of problematic. It's really not helpful. It lends to a lot more confusion than is necessary. So, yes, MJ Star, the black and white dogma is one of the reasons there's a huge rise in anti-spiritualism in this part of the world, right? And that's a really good point. When we get this upbringing that is very fundamentalist, very black and white, we kind of see more, like really anyone that probably resonates with my material, has probably seen more than, just the typical what we're told to think. So losing that, like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, is what happens with a lot of people. And that is where the problem is. Losing the faith actually was something that I really struggled with. When I threw out Christianity, I swung into atheism, when it was like, the pendulum just kind of swung to the other side. And that left me really kind of vulnerable and really, really sad too. I mean, really just ultimately kind of spiritually bereft, because it really wasn't what I thought. All I knew was that I wanted nothing to do with the Christians, and I was pretty happy if I pissed them off too. It didn't bother me at all. So there was that kind of like that initial rebellion that can really catch people and kind of trap them in this sort of, it sort of separates them from the source. I was kind of separated. I didn't know where my source was. I didn't know where to anchor. I wasn't, it was like it cut me off from being able to follow the threads back to who I was. So I feel like kind of breaking out of fundamentalism is a necessary step for those of us that have gotten into it. But then it's really crucial to work through that grief process. And it is a grief process. And ultimately, usually people that leave fundamentalism piss off a lot of people. There's usually a lot of angry parents, friends, spouses, whatever, that are, really upset at what you have done. And yes, Sam 3, hi, in some ways you do need to swing to the extremes to find the middle ground. I mean, how else do you do it, right? How else do you find the middle? And it's like, it's physics, ultimately, metaphysics. So that is what I would say about when it comes to kind of coming out of fundamentalism or out of any cult-like scenario. Actually, it is really important to get support, find your people, find the other people in the same boat as you. I had to get therapy, but I was in therapy already for eating disorders. So it really just kind of all dovetailed, because I had a really hard time with accepting the guilt, kind of cutting people off that I used to try to please in that Christian culture, or like kind of culty fundamentalist culture. Cutting them off filled me with so much guilt, I was too afraid to do it. So I had to really face those. I had to really like stare those wounds in myself down, in order to really be true to who I was. And that's ultimately what everyone is doing right now, especially as we come into now in the age of Aquarius, but also today, it's worth mentioning that the sun is moving out of Capricorn, kind of Saturn, out of Capricorn, out of the rules, regulations, religion, restrictions, also work, hard work. But it's also really good at Capricorn, and Saturn is really good at getting things done. It's very practical. It's very grounded. It gets us through the period that we need to get through, and it's a very necessary energy. So I can see why, in the older ages that would be kind of a necessary step to go through, is to kind of introduce these religions that have really strict boundaries for people. um just the way they enforce them was more about control than about compassion. But then from Capricorn, the sun tonight actually, and it happens if you are in Nashville or on that longitude, it happens at 8:27 p.m. So the sun switches in an hour, and it's going into Aquarius, which is all about autonomy. It's all about finding, kind of like what I'm saying now with religious trauma and coming out of the rules and into a nebulous place. I mean, they're calling it Aquarius as if it's water, but it's the water bearer. It's actually an air sign. So it's like the water and the air are both nebulous places, not a lot of boundaries. There's no boundaries there. We have to create our own. And that's what's beautiful about the new age. I mean, about spirituality, about this autonomous spirituality that I adhere to. It's how do I get to define it for myself. And the way that I like to define it for myself, as well as help people define it for themselves in sessions, is I like to, we're following ourselves back to the source. So either that's through past lives, or it's following our spirit guide's trajectory. And we're following our spiritual trajectory all the way back to the source. And it's not linear. So it's not, past life and future life. It's not on one line. It's back and forth and up and down. And we've kind of bounced around within our galaxy, is the way I see it, in order to, especially for those of you here, in order to really see, in order to fully fulfill this karma. And so when it comes to Earth lives, not all of them are linear on Earth. Sometimes we go through Earth cycles where we have cyclical lifetimes on Earth, but many of us have pinged from another place and are going to continue. And so this whole, and I'm jumping around here, as many of you know that I do, but this whole idea of like going back to Mars, like it's kind of like a regression when we really want to be going to, we want to be going like toward the sun, like back toward source, not farther out. We want to kind of be heading back into like more toward Venus, right? Like the Venus Pleiades cycle. We want to kind of be heading into the timeline of the Pleiadians, like into the timeline of and all, which is also where we came from, which is why I mentioned that the timelines aren't linear. And so that to me personally is what losing my faith kind of did for me. It forced me to really have to get serious about what I believed in. And I had to get to it myself. I had to define it for myself. I had to locate the source of my faith, which I think is something that oftentimes Americans, at least, we're not really taught how to do that, because we are often here without a culture. That's just sort of the karma here in America. It's really beautiful, and in many ways, it would almost be impossible to do this if we weren't all immigrants, if we weren't all here making our own culture as we go. That's the beauty of this country and of kind of what the the vision for our trajectory, our highest trajectory was. And so that is why we're kind of in this chaotic period where everyone's like, what is going on? How do I, how do I feel safe? How do I feel comfortable? How do I feel healthy? We're all having to kind of define this for ourselves. We're asked to do it for ourselves in an autonomous, Aquarius sort of way. Yeah. So it's funny because Dogma and Saturn, like Dogma, Saturn, Capricorn, was there's so many dogmas, like when it comes to religious programming, and it's like America kind of really is, we are a Christian country. It was, founded by Christians and under this Christian thing, and now the revolution really is kind of an internal one. It's kind of like they say in religion, the second coming of Christ. Christians take that literally and think he's coming and think like a person is coming to save us, when the way that I see it, the way that Yogananda writes about it, the way that so many other spiritual people see it, is the second coming is the resurrection of the Christ energy, the Christ heart in the self. It has to be, it's built in ourselves. It's done ourselves, and it's not easy. It's much easier to be saved by someone else. Much easier. So, and I think that's part of the draw of religion, is that it's easier to just kind of hand that over. I'm not going to do the work. When instead, what's required of us now is to really be like, okay, who am I? And what does that mean? Why does everyone keep asking me, who am I? Remember. Why is everyone telling me to remember? What does that mean? Right? That's what that means, is really locating the source of your faith, really locating your personal source. Where do you come from? And not even so much where do you come from as in like what planet. I know a lot of people are like, what planet am I from? Which I think I also did the same thing. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a really beautiful thing to look into and to wonder. And it's just very uplifting. It feels like home. And it brought me joy, which is really the point. Like, that's the point of kind of starseed readings, is it really just brings the soul joy. But ultimately, what it means, in my opinion, is understanding our karma, understanding where we have been, understanding our past lives. Sometimes that could be through the lens of our future lives. Oftentimes people's future selves come in as guides and start like telling them, like, and showing them, what they're going to be doing, what they're going to be, what they want, what they're wanting now. Their future self will come in as a guide and show it to them. I also get like inner child guides. They think, like, I remember I used to have visions of who I thought would be a future daughter. I was convinced she was going to be a future daughter. I have boys, but this girl, I realized later, was my inner child, my inner child coming kind of around as a guide, wanting to communicate, wanting me to get back into her energy, to get back into that place of joy. Because ultimately, that is what intuition development is. That's what creativity is. Like the psychic energy, creative energy, it's really all the same. It's very natural to children. So bringing your inner child back in really gets that intuition going, really gets you into joy. And it helps with spirituality. So much about, dogma, religion is about being practical and serious and not being silly and leaving behind the child and being an adult. And there's just so many, that kind of rigidity is really where the problem lies. Control is based in fear. Dogma is really based in control. So this dogma, control, fear, like I see a lot of, kind of along the same topic, a lot of diet dogma. People are like, there's the Buddhists that are, you have to be vegetarian, or, you're not spiritual. And then, there's just other, you have to do this, you have to eat that. And there's just diet dogma. It's really, I just don't think that it needs to be I don't think something like diet needs to be dogma. It just doesn't, and I can't play that game. I will not. Like, I will not do it. There's just a lot of, kind of there's like a lot of health dogma, right? You do this and you're healthy, you don't and you're not. And there's just, you can fill in the blank here where you will. The idea of attaching dogma to it is where we are going wrong. We have to see it. We have to kind of get above that. We have to get into a more we have to get above it, or this dogma is going to take us down. I mean, it really is. That's really the point. Like, that's really my message. Like, we really have to, humanity, society really has to get this together and really understand that it's the dogma, it's the rules, it's the regulations that are really not that's rooted in fear and in control, and it's part of the old way, and we are moving into the new. So it's interesting. Diet is the new religion. Yeah, I mean, it's really just these are dogmatic principles that I keep seeing. And someone who came out of a lot of dogma, I I can feel it when it's like you have to be vegetarian. I'm like, uh, you don't. I mean, no one really goes and tells a Native American shaman, or no one tells them that they have to be vegetarian. And you look back into the ancestral diet and look and see what your genes are used to eating. I think that you have to kind of go through genetics. I feel like you have to kind of follow, again, it's kind of following back your source. What did your ancestors eat? What do you have the enzymes to digest? How do you digest? And then you can get into Ayurveda to really find out how to keep yourself in balance. Yes, thank you, Barb. As a nutritionist, I mean, you just can't, there is no one size fits all diet. You really, in my opinion, you really have to kind of dredge for yourself in the same way that you do for spirituality. It's just part of living on earth, consuming and having to eat to survive, at least in this, at this point, really, like, until you start really ascending, like really ascending, then consuming is really part of the game here. And accepting that actually was kind of hard for me as a child. I remember thinking like this is not, I did not like this. Like, I did not want to sign up for that. But that is um it's just part of it. And really understanding, what your body needs for health, or what your convictions are. As we sensitize, you do get really you do as we sensitize, you do get really sensitive to the feelings of others, especially, when it comes to animals and the way certain farming practices. And so I do understand having convictions about vegetarianism for that reason, and or having certain diets for that reason. But it really is a personal process. Saying that other people need to be the same as you, again, back to that same theme, back to that dogmatic kind of religious trauma theme. And this is really what I mean by the religious revolution. And this is why I think religion is so ripe for revolution, is because it is steeped in dogma, and has steeped our culture, and our society in dogma that really isn't necessary. So I feel like that piece. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to say about um, Christian trauma, religious trauma. But yeah, let me know if there are any questions you guys have, in general. It doesn't even have to be about these topics. It could be about something else. If you guys have anything, just put them in the chat. I obviously, want to have a conversation and just really let you guys, I'm open to answering whatever you guys would like to talk about. This just was the Christian, revolution, the idea of coming out of dogma into autonomy as being what everyone is grappling with, really, and that's kind of being not hijacked, but it's being like we're being distracted from that. We're being distracted from that purpose. Really long work weeks, struggling to make ends meet is all distracting us from kind of finding our source, finding out who we are, whether it be past lives, to just our karma, to who our spiritual guides are, who our spiritual what our spiritual compass is, who God is for us. Is it the Father God, that we're like told to believe, or does it show up differently? So, and that is part of the intuition development also. So, I'm saying this kind of as really like as a plea for society, but this is also something that we have to go through in intuition development in general. It's just a part of the necessary journey for spirituality. So, yeah. So, Michael, what would you say is the way to establish new communities without dogma? That's a really great question. It's really, I think, about addressing it within ourselves. That's a really, kind of simplistic answer. But establishing new communities is what's going to happen. I mean, I just feel like that is what's going to be the product of this, kind of be the product of this era. We're going to be establishing our own, rules and societies, because there are going to be people that are going to be really dogmatic and rigid and not want to let that go, and people that are going to kind of want to see more, want more out of life. What's interesting along the same topic is that they have done new studies that have shown that fundamentalists are more prone to Alzheimer's. It has to do with like rigidity in almost, I think, like the frontal lobe or the brain, the rigidity, and it's rigid thinking. It's just dogma. It's fundamentalism. They might not be necessarily like church going Christians, but a rigid mindset is kind of starts hardening, like literally starts like hardening the arteries in the mind, in the brain. And so it is increasing dementia and lowering the age that dementia is starting, due to just due to pressure, due to friction. It's just too much. I mean, the rules and not being allowed to make your own rules, it's just gone on too long. And so ultimately that's why, like, the indigo children, the crystal rainbow souls, that's why all of us, like all of the old souls, kind of started coming in to really push those boundaries out, really kind of, make critical mass, so that those boundaries, so we could be less rigid, fill society with thinking that was less rigid. And it did take a little bit of like a sledgehammer at first, right? And then a little bit easier going. But now they're a little different, easier going, right? So it's kind of the same but different. So moving right along. Yeah, could you share about the current times, please, Olivia? DM. Will the mandates end soon? So, I really feel like when it comes to will the mandates end soon? I hope so. I want them to. That is my own. I don't think that mandatory things need to be made for health purposes. So that is just my own opinion. Will the mandates end soon? I feel like in the world they're going to ramp up. I feel like they're really going to start pushing harder. There's a something about, the weather coming in and like kind of pushing mandates too. I mean, there's like it's like, okay, if this doesn't kind of change people's minds, and we're going to distract over here, we're going to change, and then we're going to try again. So there's lots of distracting techniques, like look over here, look at this weather pattern over here, and then look over, and then come back, and maybe you'll kind of go deeper or be more hypnotized. It's all kind of hypnosis going on right now, hypnotic tactics trying to kind of push things. So that's how I'm seeing it right now. And then let's see. I am going to find the next one. Ken Elfern, hi, can you speak on positive abductions? Yes. Yes, I can. Thank you for asking. So, positive abductions. When I see positive abductions, it is usually children hanging out with their families. It's people being interdimensionally contacted by their people, and they hold that resonance, and it's almost like we've come in here as ambassadors. We've come in here interdimensionally, and we have rays that are still shooting out from the heart center to our other parallel past and future lifetimes, and we get help. We have help. And so that's what I see positive abductions being, is help, interdimensional help, and not in a way that interferes. And so oftentimes we don't remember them. I mean, I've gone through periods of time where I was having meetings, nightly school, like an astral school. And it would be someone kind of would come in, and I would kind of walk through the closet door and not remember till I woke up in the morning. And that was a positive abduction. The word abduction is not positive, by the way. So don't get me wrong there. But that is what kind of positive ET contact looks like. I feel like it is way more common than we speak about. So I feel like it is very safe to say that if you resonate with my material, that if you're watching this, then you've most likely had a positive ET connection. You just most likely have. And these beings are usually not grays. They're usually different. They're usually more human looking from what I see. Not always. Sometimes they have very different bodies, but they're usually they usually glow and uplift you, and and the consciousness can't really hold it. At least not in this, in this time, in this density. The consciousness really can't kind of go there and hold that space because of what we have to do, because of our dense body. And so the process of lightening up our bodies, our multiple layers about our spiritual bodies, our etheric, our astral, the act of healing lightens us up, lightens up our density. Meditation lightens us up. All of that gets us up and into those resonant higher states of consciousness with the positive ET being. So that is what I would say. That is what I would say about positive abductions. I would say it's happening, and it's happening all the time. I really do. So many of us too, this is worth mentioning. So many of us too that have been in the hybrid program, our children, the hybrid children are interdimensional. And by interdimensional, that means no time. That means time is malleable. I think they show it as for us, it's ice, for them, it's water. So they have already gone through an ascension cycle, our children, and are coming back now as guides. And so that is something to really keep in mind when it comes to abductions in the hybrid program. Okay, moving right along. Yes. So, yeah, I mean, that's a good point. So, Amina, hi. Thank you so much for being here. How do you navigate relationships post abstaining from religion? So that is thank you for asking that question. I feel like I had a really great question. I don't know if this was you, but it was a long time ago. A really beautiful question that I ended up missing. I think it was last year or the year before on a live. And so whoever you are, I really apologize, but I'm so glad you asked this, because it's very much the gist of that question. Because relationships, when it comes to religion, And leaving religion, if you're already with someone who, if you're with someone who is still kind of holding on to the dogma, it's very difficult. That's part of the struggle. That's part of it. And if you're not in a relationship, when you kind of leave and you're free to really start getting to know yourself and healing the wounds that have happened from that religious trauma, so that you start resonating to different people. Like, really, chemistry is really just our wounds resonating with someone else's wounds. And so once our wounds are kind of healed, or even if we're working on them, it's in progress, maybe not maybe healed but not cured, right, kind of thing. And we kind of meet someone else who gets it too, someone who's left religion too. That's the energy we start kind of putting out. So I'm not sure if you're asking about relationships that you're in that still want to stay in the religion, and you're wanting to get out. That's tricky. That's tricky. That's when divorces happen. One person wants to grow one way, the other person doesn't, or they want to grow a different way. That's part of navigating relationships. Otherwise, it's just when that happens, and then I know divorce, is it's not necessary, for if you're wanting to kind of get out of religion. It isn't necessary to divorce with relationships, but what is necessary is very deep levels of compassion. When I left religion, I was full of anger and resentment about religion, about all things religion, about Jesus. Like, Jesus would that whole idea would all trigger me. All the old vocabulary would trigger me. And so that is what is going to be required. If you're still in a relationship and you're wanting to kind of move on, you're going to have to really work on that compassion toward them using the vocabulary or doing the things that kind of might trigger. So just notice that, use that as okay, that's triggering me right now, due to my wounds, and really work with that, and really, being honest. And you have to really, with relationships, I feel like once we kind of leave religion behind and we start defining religion for ourselves, we really start resonating strongly in a magnetic way, because we're coming more into ourselves, into our body. Before, it was just a lot of rules imposed from the outside. When we start imposing our own rules, that's when we start filling up more of our own space, and that's more magnetism. So that does kind of draw in more relationships. Now, when it comes to relationships like parents, friends, people that are angry at you for breaking out of the cult, leaving the cult, you're really going to be asked. Your initiation, your spiritual initiation here is facing that fear, facing that guilt. I had to do it. Really, and not letting it stop you, understanding that your life is yours, and you're doing this because you're no longer wanting to live a life for someone else. You're wanting to live it for yourself. So that is what I would say about navigating new relationships. It might be that you have to walk away and leave space for new relationships by being alone for a while, by being lonely for a while. I that creates a vacuum that is attractive to fill with the correct people for you. So I say, when it comes to relationships, deal with them with compassion and grace as much as you can, as much compassion and grace as you can. And then understand that the guilt, is really just, if you eh, really understand that your guilt and your fear is okay, and understand that that is what you're facing, and you can move on, and you can move through it, and you can do it anyway, right? Feel the fear and do it anyway. So I hope that answered your question. Let me know I if I did. Um, yeah, and I'm kind of coming back down to really see what Michael. Yeah, you. Thanks for asking, because I know some startup communities haven't gotten too far because some founders really want to be authoritarian rulers. This always fails. Yes, Right now, it's really early in this whole all of us can kind of see this happening, but it's still a little premature. We're really still kind of working with what it means to not just kind of start a new thing from the old rules, right? And so what I'm seeing is actually a few years down the road. I'm looking at 2025 for, for people moving into communities. It might even be after that. So it's just know that, we're holding this vision, this collective kind of consciousness to in order to make it as seamless of a transition as possible. Anytime we make predictions, it acts as a warning. Seers are really just trying to warn humanity about the timeline that they're on. They're like, look, this is where we're headed. So that humanity can take that prediction as a warning and switch timelines, shift out of it. That's why negative predictions don't come true, is because it has depotentiated that timeline with a warning. Hey guys, this is where you're headed. I followed that train, I followed that timeline down to the end, and this is where it's going. So that when it comes to, seership, mediumship, that is um what is happening. We're kind of seeing, what is potential, but I'm honestly seeing a timeline where all of this awareness in the world and everyone really depotentiates a lot of what could be more disastrous. So I think we're gonna have a more seamless transition um than some of the worst predictions. But I do think that the weather stuff is going to be kind of our it's going to be flaring up for the next year or two. But let me see, let me catch up here. Yes, yes, decide. um yeah, we're in need of hope. And I see. Yeah, so Grace Lannon, do you have former connections from church of the work judge you doing work as a psychic? Just curious with your experience. That's a great question. I actually don't keep any connections from my past from the church. I really, I'm not saying that this is what you should do, because I think you can. I think you can, ultimately we want to be fully ourselves in front of everyone. And it's not that I'm hiding, from the church. I just kind of don't, I had to kind of move on. I had to just kind of clean break kind of thing. It's just how I work. I really couldn't hold any of that baggage. It was what happens when we're in a relationship, either a friend or, connections from church or whatever, whoever it is. It'll start feeling our energy will start getting drained by the amount of energy we have to expend in order to keep the connection, right? And if it's not meant to be, we're going to have to expend more and more energy just to either like please them or to kind of stay at their level or to just kind of use their vocabulary. It just becomes taxing to the soul. It starts becoming draining. So my philosophy has always just been kind of like compassionately, like clean break, kind of moving on thing, just out of necessity for growth for the soul, right? And so when it comes to judging me for doing work as a psychic, I mean, there has been some kind of stuff like that. Nothing outright for me personally. I mean, I really don't, talk about what I do to my family. I just don't. I'm not up for their opinion about it, so I just don't bring it up. It's not that I'm really like hiding it. I have my whole office, here, they see it. I just don't really talk about it. And it's not because I'm scared of what they will say as much as I know they can't handle it and I know it triggers them. And so I see it as an act of compassion, that I'm not rubbing it in or I'm not trying to prove it. I'm not trying to, I just kind of let it be. I let them do, what they want to do. And I do what I want to do. That's just been me. But I will say the only thing I saw was when I got married, the pastor from my childhood did our ceremony, and he was using some very suspicious passages during our wedding where I kind of think that he knew I wasn't, my husband is Hindu, so he knew I wasn't Christian. And I think, have any of you religious or ex-religious fundamentalist, fundamentalist people been prayed at? It's like a passive aggressive thing where they don't pray for you. They don't pray with you. They're praying at you, right? And you're like, okay, that was a very passive aggressive passage to choose. Thank you. So there's a lot of that in fundamentalism. It's a lot of passive aggression because fundamentalism doesn't teach people how to cultivate themselves. It doesn't teach meditation. It doesn't teach emotional intelligence or emotional healing. It just doesn't teach healing. It's a feel good kind of bandage, in the moment, and give away your power to someone else. And really, ultimately, what it's doing is it's siphoning the psychic faculties of all of its people. Don't use your psychic abilities, give it away to Jesus. This, we will save you, right? And so, in that way, it's siphoning the psychic ability by kind of just teaching people not to trust their intuition, go to God, right? And so, what would happen is people are either saying, God told me, blah, blah, blah. That's psychic. That's intuition. Okay? They're doing what I'm doing, but they're calling it God. They're just using a different vocabulary. And I think that's great. I think that's great. I think it's necessary. I think they need it. I think it's wonderful. I'm just glad they have that. I'm glad that there are some people who are talking to God. They're the ones that are actually, connecting to the heart, that are actually probably, connecting to their intuition and to their spirit, until it stops being compassionate, and that's kind of the gauge. That's kind of when it's not God anymore. They're just saying it's God. So that's your barometer. But anyway, yeah, so cosmic medium Grace Lannon, let me know, like, have you had experience with that? Do share if you have, because it's not easy being prayed at, or having passive aggressive passages read at you at your wedding, and just in front of people, or when they were calling me unequally yoked because I was marrying a non-Christian. So I was going to be doing the heavy lifting for him, is what the idea was, which is very much the opposite. Can I just tell you, can we just talk about Hindus and the spiritual gravity that they carry, of this most ancient religion on the planet? So, and Hindus are very different. I love Hindus because they're like, oh yeah, Jesus, we love Jesus. He was a great Hindu. They're so open. They're very open and inclusive in a way that Christianity never was for me. Maybe for some people it is, but it wasn't for me. And so I always loved that. They were like, oh yes, we love Ganesh, we love Durga, and we love Jesus. They would have them all. And I'd be like, that is what I like. Like, that is what I'm after. That is what I resonate to. And the idea of understanding that all of the deities, all of the beings, all gods are pieces of, are facets of God. Right. And so the Hindus are really good at doing that. They're really good at understanding that Durga is also an aspect of Shakti, Kali, all of the female, Lakshmi, Saraswati, they're all the one Shakti. They're all under the umbrella of the divine feminine. And one is just like the other, right? Just the different facets of a woman, of a human being. They really understood that at a deep level. And that deep experiential kind of knowledge came out as all these different goddesses, but ultimately they use them as one and the same, like the peacock tail. It's like many but one, and you can kind of fold out or focus on one if you wanted to. If you need a specific energy in yourself, to focus on one and what she means, what that means to you, and same with the male and all the different aspects of the masculine. They have, all the just beautiful different ways that the masculine expresses itself, and all the different stories of the masculine, for the same reason, rather than Christianity, who just has one, like, father god, and he's kind of a jealous god, and he's angry and he's mad at his children, right? There wasn't as much of that. At least there's not that in the culture. There is, some of that in the ancient stories, right? When you kind of get back into, kind of a more patriarchal time, that is just part of their interpretation. But ultimately, when it comes down to practice, Christians tend to be more like dogmatic, whereas Hindus were more open when it comes to religion. And I got off on a tangent there. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, moving right along. Yeah. So, Dana, question. Can you discuss the US Pluto return? Girl, what do you think we can expect? Okay. Yeah. Yes, yes. The US Pluto return. So whenever the Pluto, so on the US chart, Pluto, it's actually like down here. Pluto is being conjuncted by Pluto. They're touching. Transit Pluto is hitting Pluto in the US chart. So July 4th, 1776, right? The Declaration of Independence, where Pluto is there um, in the chart, is being conjuncted by Pluto now. And that has always symbolized the fall of a society, of a civilization. And not necessarily fall, actually a change, a dramatic change. Think the Tower card in the tarot, right? And so when it happened with Rome, they went through cycles of shifting, of falling. They went through several falls. It wasn't one gigantic poof, they were gone, which is kind of what Americans, I feel like, are afraid of. They're like, like, is it just like going to be a pole shift? We're all going to just like poof. But it's more of like a big, a big shift, a big change. And it's going to happen, several, because Pluto does a nice little dance, and that's why it stays wherever it is for 2 years. It likes to retrograde and just kind of hit you again. It's a wonderful cycle. Well, when it comes to the US, what to expect for the US's chart, I mean, changes in the economy. So if I just pull up the US's chart right now on my software. Yes, and I am using for the chart for the US, I have it for July, wait, 7th. That is wrong. Okay. For the July 4th, 1776 at 5:15. I used 5:15 p.m. And so for them, um Pluto is in the second house in Capricorn, and Pluto is hitting, it is in orb right now. It's hitting it in the second house. So that is going to affect the economy. It's going to be a financial shift, a financial change. And that, yeah, Pluto, it also is going to kind of go into the 11th and 12th houses. So it's touching the second house, 11th house of society and groups of people, obviously, right? And then the 12th house of karma and hidden enemies, and these and psychology, and it's the Pisces kind of house there, ruled by Scorpio. So you have the second house, the 11th house, and 12th house being affected by this. It's change. It's change of the economy. It's really kind of being, it's a change of hands. I know that watching something that the Prince Charles was speaking at, kind of urging everyone to give over to this person that supposedly had a lot of money that he never named. And all I could think of was China. And he mentioned like the terracotta army. And so I feel like all of that is really just kind of symbolizing, like, let's let China take over the financial system. They have the money, they can help us out, they can bail us out. And so that's what I'm seeing, is a sort of a shift that's very like psychological. Since it's Pluto, and Scorpio, it's all going to be kind of like, oh, we're not even going to notice. We're not even going to notice the shift. But it's going to be affecting the economy. And I think 2023 is when the crash is when we're really going to feel, more seeing things, prices, bubbles bursting and prices kind of changing. And so that is what I think we can expect more of a shift in our financial stability, in the value of the dollar, as well as just like values, things that, like commodities. Yeah, because we're gonna have to figure out the trade. Trade is gonna be a little weird for a while. So all these like shipping and like delays and like ships off the coast, it's like everyone's kind of trying to figure out, like we're having to rewrite treaties and figuring out trade, because it's all about money and avenues of value and where it's coming in from, and hidden enemies coming to the surface. Like, where are they? A lot of this stuff that's going on right now, I feel like, has to do with a technology that's been turned on. That's like kind of blanketing the globe, and it has to do with electricity. It's something electrical that is really, they're looking for something. It's either like a warhead, or they're looking, or like you're seeing all these like asteroid movies. It's something where they're looking for some kind of threat. And I think that the new electrical technology is actually fritzing people out. I think it kind of dovetails with just lots of new technology that is really bad for the body, and we're being introduced to it, and the human body is amazing and it adapts quickly, but it's not easy. So that's kind of what I'm seeing happening, kind of secretly right now. It might have to do with weather control patterns. So that's what that's kind of what I see going on for the next, it's like 2025. I'm like, I'm gonna kind of hold out until 2025 when it comes to any sort of um like moving out of my very like landlocked, area of Nashville. It's like, this is, we're safe for now. I will reassess in a few years, kind of thing. So yeah. Mina said, "Oh, CERN is coming back on this year." Interesting. Yes. So let's see. Narnia Closet. MJ Star. Yeah, I love that. I'm not sure what I was talking about when you were saying that, because I'm now so behind. But yeah, the Narnia Closet, interdimensional portal. Okay, Whitney, I'm curious if you have any concrete coping mechanisms, I like that, slash advice for everyone we love getting all the vaccines. I know you've talked about it, but I feel like everyone has felt a shift very recently. I honestly really feel like understanding and staying out of the fear and not kind of doing to them what we don't want them to do to us is the key. I really to shift. And I'm not sure what shift you're talking about recently, because once I kind of started like letting go of being afraid of shedding and all of those things that everyone's kind of talking about, I really, and just started really supporting my immune system. I really um haven't had any worries, and I kind of go in without worry. It's everyone's really triggered right now on both sides, and it's really difficult to kind of find that equilibrium. Everyone is frustrated. Everyone is really hitting the frustration. So what I would say when it comes to concrete coping mechanisms is to really work on like helping out your frustration, and also anything to do with relaxing and just really, getting back into trusting your body, trusting your body, and know that it's like, trust that your body knows what it's doing, and that you'll be okay, because really the spike proteins are a part of life now. They really just are. And our body might get sick for a second to build up immunity, but it does as long as we're healthy enough, right? And so that is what I would say to that, is to really just keep yourself as as much as you can lessen your stress, that helps, and that helps by just not really holding on to that fear across the board. I mean, I know, so many people that have to get it, and then they're full of all this fear, and I'm like, that's just as toxic. It's really toxic. Like, the fear is part of the toxicity here, and so I feel like, personally, for me, I just don't worry. I know that, like, kind of spike proteins are everywhere, and I take NAC at night. I take glutathione too sometimes, but I like to take NAC. And then on an empty stomach, this is important. If you feel like you've been, around, just been kind of like exposed to really anything, bromelain. Bromelain is a pineapple enzyme. Take it on an empty stomach. So I would either take it before bed or as soon as I woke up in the morning, and I'll take like one or two, and sometimes I'll take both. Bromelain kind of eats through excess protein substances. It'll even eat through, I think, scar tissue, if I'm remembering that correctly. Don't quote me on that. I might not be right about that, but that it eats through excess proteins. And so it really helps with spike protein overload, which is really what I see people struggling with. Overloading the liver. NAC supports the liver. It helps the liver clear that stuff out. Glutathione is what NAC produces, and so NAC and glutathione really helps the liver keep going. So that is what I would take. I would take bromelain on empty stomach. It's kind of magical, and then NAC, as well as glutathione. So, and then, anything that really helps the immune system. So zinc, vitamin C. I don't really take zinc. I take liver pills personally. I take, it's from like New Zealand, liver, just to give me vitamin D, zinc, and all the good stuff. So that's what, that's what I do personally. And then I just don't worry about it, because I'm like, I've not worried about really. I just try to keep as little fear, frustration, and stress as I can. And so whatever that means for you, and then taking those supplements, as well as homeopathy, constitutional homeopathy. I've talked to a lot of my clients about this, but constitutional homeopathy really helps build your vital force in the body, and it can take, for me, I've been on it now for three or 4 years, actually. And it goes in layers, because you're getting through so many miasms or family traumas, epigenetic trauma, generational traumas, right, passed down. You kind of have to get to those first, and then you can get into deeper and deeper layers as you work with your symptoms. And I work with a classical homeopath, who does the what is it called? Sensation method. So it's whatever I'm feeling, the sensations are how he diagnoses. So that was really, I feel like, helped bolstered my personal. I used to get sick all the time. I would just like look at someone sick and get sick. And now that has helped my vital force. So start there. And I have my homeopath. I can tell you his name if you want, let me know. And then let's see, what else was I gonna say for this? Oh yeah, when it comes to treating either the virus or like spike protein overload or whatever, I would treat that with acute homeopathy. So the stuff that worked kind of back then aren't really like the symptoms of what everyone's getting is different now. And so it's not just one size fits all. You can't just say, hey, go out, and get this one drug for this, because it's not allopathic medicine, it's homeopathic medicine. Completely different philosophy. Look up the organon. Hanuman, is the name of the guy who came up with this. He has a statue in Washington, D.C. Like, this is a really, I think, like Steiner would talk about homeopathy and how it was just a different form of medicine. So that's what I would really focus on, as well as just grace for yourself when you're feeling overly frustrated, sounding boards with people that get you, and then, like-minded groups of people, that can just really get you, and where you don't feel a lot of fear. Um, okay. Yes, MJ Star, can you speak about the link between climate change and its narrative and Venus? Apparently, the gas house effect was first discovered on Venus. Very interesting. Yeah, I feel like you have really tapped into something there intuitively. So I, yeah, okay. Yeah. So the idea of climate change is correlated to Earth cycles. So the climate is changing. It's kind of getting into like a global cooling due to Earth cycles, due to the cycle of the epochs. Honestly, everyone kind of remembered from Atlantis that at the end of ages, at the end of eras, cataclysms, occurred. The Earth changes, the Earth shifts into, just kind of like we move house. It's kind of chaotic for a while, and then it's beautiful. That's kind of what we're in right now. We're coming into this age of Aquarius, and so interesting though what you're talking about with the narrative and Venus and the gas house effect discovered on Venus. It's like you're picking up on like a Venusian timeline. You're picking up on a Venusian connection there, MJ Star. So I really like that. I would trust what you're I would trust what you're getting about that, because I really feel like um it's like a narrative of what like happened there. It's like a memory that everyone kind of had, and everyone is like, okay, we're going to use this because it's going to resonate with people. And that's really what happens. It resonates with people on a deep level, on a subconscious level. And that's when it can really be um, like used. So I hope that that answered your question. I feel like, yeah, you've kind of picked up on a correlation there. And I feel like it's probably also coming from your memories on Venus, like your recollection on Venus, and this idea of what's happening here being kind of relevant to what happened to us on Venus it's a thing. Yeah. So I also, yeah, yes. And I'm just taking a moment to kind of catch up here. Mm, yes, yes. Great comments, guys. I'm just reading through all the comments. Yeah, and so to kind of circle back to Grace Lynn, and yeah, unfortunately, I've had some experiences with people thinking mediumship is evil slash demonic. Well, it sounds like they have never had a mediumship reading, and their loved ones come through in a very beautiful and loving way, because no one really leaves there ever thinking it's evil or demonic. Everyone always leaves feeling like that's God. that that is coming from God. So, you know, it's sad, I think, that people don't understand, but until it's like until people are ready, there's really not going to be a lot that we can do to prove to them. I remember I used to kind of want to come in and prove things, and that has to do with some of my past life wounds personally, and it just never worked. And so I would just say I had to make sure that I didn't come in with too much energy of wanting to prove myself, because that was when that's when I would really kind of resonate to old patterns that were not helpful for me. So 8:27 right now, I can kind of feel the shift. We're shifting into Aquarius, out of Capricorn into Aquarius right now in this moment. If you're in Nashville or on the longitude of Nashville. So I'm just kind of taking a moment to feel the sun, even though it's not out. It's moving into a new sign for the next month. So it's just a kind of a fun, really little ode to the sun here. with all of us being together and just sharing in this and talking about random outside the box topics. So it's very, very Aquarius. Yes, DM, bless this moment. Yeah, so as I'm going back up and getting through all of these awesome chats. Okay. Hmm. Yeah, MJ Star. That's why I've been craving liver. Yeah, I mean, I can't stomach it personally. I want to, I wish I could eat it. I can't. So I take the supplements. And it's the zinc that I needed from the liver, as well the bioavailable zinc, I should say, as well as the vitamin D. So Chloe Love. Hi, Chloe. What kind of effects did you notice when you started to cleanse the liver? Also, is it true that seeing floaters in the eye is linked to toxins in your system? Well, eyes are connected to the liver. I have my husband to thank for that knowledge. He is a naturopath, and he makes sure, I'm always like asking, like, what's connected to what, but the eyes are on the same meridian as the liver. And so there is, I think, a connection to that. So when I first started cleansing the liver, I actually kind of noticed like an uptick in anger, honestly. It was like I was kind of purging like anger, and liver stores anger, gallbladder stores resentment. Also. So I at first I feel like I felt it was kind of like worse before it got better, and then I felt lighter. And so I would do parasite cleanses and coffee enemas, and I kind of hit things really, really hard. And it's not necessarily that I recommend that, but that's just kind of my speed. And so that's what I noticed, like parasite cleanse, parasites, as well as feeling more clarity, clearer skin. I don't know what it is. I think it's just me, but my skin reacts immediately to a liver cleanse, as well as a colon cleanse. So a liver and colon cleanse immediately affects my skin. So that's kind of what I noticed as well. At first, I think I had sensitivity. I was taking milk thistle, and I think at first I felt like, ugh. And so I had to start really small and then increase. So milk thistle for liver, as well as coffee enemas, and parasite cleanses. So um, Michael, have you seen Gigi Young's lecture on the sun? She mentioned some things about this and that. No, I haven't. I haven't been able. I've honestly, like, I missed last month's live just because I've been so overwhelmed with life and kids and work that I have not really been able to catch up on her stuff, and I really want to. So I totally will. It's just, where's the time? I will find it. Oh, you were asking DM about that. Okay, never mind. Let's see. Okay, great. Yeah, so I think I'm all caught up on the questions, and let me check my notes and see if I caught up on everything I wanted to discuss. I did mention in my email that went out talking about let's see. Let's see. Yeah. So I think that I am going to stop right there. I feel like I covered most of everything that I wanted to get into. I know really what I want everyone, to really know is it's really the fear, the frustration, the stress that's really caving in on people. And so really supporting yourself, supporting your body, your immune system, and supporting your stress. Um, yeah, DM, go ahead. That's totally fine. I would just I'm just kind of making sure I have covered everything that I wanted to. And I really feel like you guys I had a really fun time in the chat with you all. Thank you so much for chatting and for your questions. Please let me know if I forgot one and um post it on here. Hi, Jacob. Thank you for coming. Or Jacobin. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So people who have had the V, what does that really do to them? Soul-wise, ascension-wise, there's so much fear. You know, I really feel oh, I didn't know that that was a question. I think I saw that. I really don't feel like it affects them on the soul level. I really think that I really feel like they'll be okay. I When it comes to the genetic stuff, if you're talking about the genetic modifications, that is where I don't trust that. I don't know we don't know what's happening to the genes. I don't trust it. I feel like there's something um in it that I just that's but even that can't affect the soul in an ascension wise. It really doesn't. There is so much fear. The fear affects people more. I'm telling you, like I'm just there's so much fear. And even the anti-vaxxers are so full of fear, it's like making them sick too. So I'm like seeing the people, you know, that have gotten the vaccine, I'm not seeing really anything happening to their soul or cutting off their ascension. Is it kind of creating more muddiness in the body, like more of a detox kind of situation needs to occur? Yeah, it's more of just like there needs to be cleansing and detoxing, right? And so it's not like, in my opinion, it's not that it cuts off the soul, it just but depression can cut off your soul, right? Being so weighed down and so full of toxins that you know, can't really like you don't have any motivation. That is what cuts off the soul. I think the problem is mandating and controlling and getting it over and over for years and years. That's where I see a problem with genetic modifications. It's a long con. So that's why I think it's important now to get in on, you know, to get in on like m- medical freedom, really, because I think it's more of a long game than if you get it right now, then you can't connect and you can't ascend. I don't agree with that. I will go on record and say I think that that is bollocks and I don't agree. And so I feel like that is unfortunately kind of hurting a lot of people that might be on the fence. A lot of people on the fence are kind of having to get it, and then they're kind of getting like wounded by that fearful ideology. And we do need to be speaking out. We do need to be fighting for for freedom, right? Freedom and autonomy kind of is the name of the game, but it doesn't, but not at the expense of fear and telling people that, well, if you get it, you can't ascend. That's not true. That just isn't true. And the people, like the psychics that I know that have gotten it, I'm like, I'm watching you, I'm watching. Like I'm seeing they're still psychic. I'm not seeing it affecting their psychic abilities. Now ask me that again in you know, after however many, you know, down the line. That's what I don't know. Then that's the slippery slope, right? You know, you have, but honestly, like I got every single vaccine that there was all through college until I got the what was it? The HPV vaccine, which was like 3, and then it really like it really I started like it really hurt me. And so that's when I was like, okay, no more. I was getting like every flu shot every year. So I'm just saying, like, it really didn't, I was able to get to where I am now. Like, I'm able to have, a conscious connection, even though I have that history. And most of you guys like do too. And so it's not like one shot is going to take that away with people. I truly believe that. And I know that there's a lot of people struggling out there. And I do feel like, fighting against it and really, speaking up is important, especially for those in leadership. But I do feel like we need to come back to a place of balance where we understand that, it doesn't matter if you have or if you haven't. I love you. Let's get together. That's the place I want to get. That's where we need to get. It's kind of like back with the flu shot, right? Like, no one, that wasn't a question. No one was really worried about that. Whereas now people are worried about something that I see as more electrical. And so that's another story. But yes, Bahri, too much fear mongering on both sides. Yeah, that's what I think. That's how I feel about it. I feel like there's fear mongering on both sides. And I think that's unnecessary. I think it's unnecessary and I think it's uncompassionate. So that is my 2 cents on that. And I really feel like if you support, whether you are or whether you are not getting it, support your immune system and let go of the fear. The fear is the real toxin. Honestly, the fear, guilt, that's the real toxin. So just know that. No matter where you stand on this topic, and it's a difficult topic. It's a difficult topic for me. I mean, like an ex people pleaser that I am, to talk about this, it is hard. So thank you guys for making me do it. I can always always step out and speak about it if it's a question coming up. So let's see. Oh, thank you so much, Whitney. And thank you, DM, for your words. And thank you all so much. On that note, I just want to remind everyone there is a free support group next Wednesday night at 7. Email me so that I can put you on the invite. If you want to join that. And then we have all level beginner mediumship on Saturday at noon, Saturday the 29th. So Saturday, the last Saturday in January, not this one, but next one. So Saturday, January 29th. Let's see. Okay. Thank you. Okay. And so then we also have on 2/22/22, Meet Your Spirit Guides class on Zoom. So like a group class. You can sign up for all of these online on my website. So just keep that in mind. Let me know if you guys are interested. And we had so much fun today chatting with you guys and talking about just relevant, present things that are just on everyone's minds and on everyone's hearts. And I really feel like the idea of talking about religion and the dogma, it has wider, I talked about that for a reason, because there's wider significance to it. It is a holographic sort of topic. So just know that that's why I talked about it. And thank you so much, everyone, and good night. I hope you have a great night. Thank you so much. And I will see you next time. And I also, if you guys have anything you would want me to make videos on for my YouTube channel, please let me know either in the chat or send me or comment on this, and let me know what it is that you want me to make videos on, and maybe we can do a premiere where we can all chat. So that is in the works. Thank you guys so much and have a great night. Bye.